So I'll I'll ask this question, and if someone says no, I'm going to have to edit this out. So has anyone listened to the podcast before? Right, you've listened. There's some nods of approval there. Right, that's a good start, because if anyone said no, that is editing right out. That's not the point. But what I'm going to try and do is I'll try and get everyone to introduce themselves individually. And what would be really handy for our listeners, if you could just obviously say who you are and obviously where you studied, but also what I thought would be quite poignant would be to say how many interviews you had before you landed a job, or how many interviews that you've had. I think I'd be really kind of interested to see if someone says, "Oh, I didn't have any," and someone says, "Well, I've had 30 and I'm still going." So it'd be interesting to see if there's a trend amongst the eight of you. So if I start on the top of my list, I've got Amber. So if I work my way down, so introduce yourself to our. I don't think there's many listeners. We've got a listener in Bolivia, but yeah, introduce yourselves to the people that listen to Design Truth.
Yeah, hello, my name's Amber. I studied product design at Cardiff Met.
Good stuff. And can you remember how many interviews you had? Was it a seamless experience into work, or was it?
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a bit of an idiot, but I wasn't I wasn't really looking for a job, so I didn't go through any interviews.
Good stuff. Right. Let's hope that's a trend as this progresses. Sam, you're next on this, and Sam Wynne Jones, which is the greatest. Which is you're not the first Wynne Jones we've had on the pod. So
No, I was really surprised actually because was it Jordan and Wynn? They're from North Wales, and Drew, I know you're
we
around there as well. So
literally every designer in North Wales has been on this podcast. Trust me.
It's like maybe one or two dogs that haven't yet.
Yeah.
Big trend. Nothing else going on there. But yeah, no, my name's Sam Jones. I studied product design at Cardiff Met as well, and I had one video interview.
Good stuff. And Honor, who works with Wynne Jones, so it just seems like we're basically, if we don't get a sponsorship by Entia by the end of this, then we never will. But if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Honor. I graduated in 2019 from Loughborough University in product design and technology, and started looking for jobs in January. Got a job at Entia by March. I think I had around about 5 interviews in that time. Yeah.
Good stuff. And over to you, Tom.
So I'm Tom, and I graduated from Loughborough University in 2019. I think I had one interview, and then I got my first job, and I started interviewing again in 2020, like January. I actually had an interview at Entia with Wynne. Obviously didn't get it. And then since then, I think I was made redundant, and I've had one interview to get some freelance work since then, and that's it.
Good stuff. And Connor?
Hello. Yeah, my name's Connor Strodwick. I am from Nottingham Trent University. I graduated last summer during the first lockdown. That was fun. And I think I applied for about 65 jobs, 2 interviews, and started my job in the beginning of December.
Good stuff. And how's the job going?
It's going all right. I mean, lockdown and Christmas break has been making it stop start, but yeah, no, everything's going all right, actually.
Yeah, that seems quite poignant, because I probably should stress that please don't try to say anything that gets your work into trouble. That would be my one bit of advice over the next hour. Don't say anything that's like, oh, we're working on this project, because trust me, we've done enough episodes of these now, Drew, where we often have to get some sort of approval by someone that no one said anything that breaks a contract or something like that. So
we've mostly just edited out ums and ers and things.
Yeah. So we're gonna see who's the first one that says something and they're like, oh, shit, probably shouldn't have said that. So
want it.
Yeah. So Charlie, on to you.
I'm Charlie Berkhamshaw. Graduated from Loughborough in 2020, last year. And then I was doing a little bit of freelance work kind of towards the end of my studies, going into the summer, and then got a job at Crux through Instagram, actually. So I had a couple of online chats on Teams, and then, I got my job after 2 calls.
Brilliant, good stuff. Matt, over to you with the fluorescent lighting there. It's a great background you've got.
I was going for an ambience, but
Yeah.
they're quite extreme. Yeah. I'm Matt. I'm a Loughborough dropout, actually, seeing as so many of you are from Loughborough, but I got my degree from the University of Strathclyde in the design and manufacturing department there. And I graduated 2020. I did 2 interviews, got lucky. In fact, I should mention this was in February, so I got lucky with that, and got 2 offers based on those. But I was pretty set with one of the first applications I did, so I got quite lucky.
Good stuff. And over to you. We spoke last week, didn't we, Will? And you was working in Ireland or something bizarre.
Yeah, so hi guys, my name's William Diel. I graduated last year from Coventry University studying product design. And yeah, so basically since then I've had one job local to where I'm from in Oxfordshire at a furniture company, and now I work for a company called Dolman in Dublin. So I've moved over and kind of moved to another country during the pandemic, which has been quite an experience. But yeah, that's where I'm at in a minute.
Good stuff. There's definitely a story or two there, I'm sure, over the next hour or so. So I've actually been hit with a barrage of listener questions, and I'm going to start with a listener question, because if I don't if I ask for questions and then don't actually ask the questions that people ask for, it seems quite pointless, really. So I've been hit with loads, so we're just going to hit with one. I had an email from a chap called Daniel Hearn. So hi, Daniel. I don't know. I don't think we've ever spoken before or anything like that. But thanks for tuning in and
didn't get his age and where he's from.
No, nothing. It just got an email saying, "Hi, Brad and Ju. Here's a boatload of questions I've got for graduates. So I'm going to pick one of them and ask to them." So now you've all kind of graduated, I suppose, and you're kind of maybe in a point of looking back. There may actually be people that listen to this that are in the I call them the class of 2021, so those that are still in kind of studying mode. Now you've done a little bit of time in industry. What's your one bit of advice for anyone that's just about to graduate, kind of coming up for the following year, or they're still studying? Have you had the chance to really look back and think about things you wish you'd done, or learnings you've now started to do stuff in industry and gone, yeah, you maybe need to brush up on this a little bit, or anything like that? I don't know if anyone wants to kick off on that question.
I would say if you feel like you've graduated from uni and you have a skill that is design related that you don't think you were good at, now's a good time to develop that, if that makes sense. So I wasn't so great at CAD. My SolidWorks license from the uni was still running, so I just took it upon myself to take the CAD exams for SolidWorks and get up to a certain level which is respectable for job applications. And the same thing with sketching. Like, you're not expected to be the best sketcher when you leave, so don't be afraid to buy how-to sketchbooks and go through from square one again. And also just kind of take some time, don't put your foot off the gas, but also try and treat it more like a hobby than a studying crazy focus, because you need to relax a little bit after uni, and at the same time you need to also keep it ticking over. But that's kind of how I treated it.
Yeah. So was there, when you was talking about the SolidWorks thing there, was there kind of videos on YouTube or kind of challenges you was doing, or was it all just kind of off your own back and personal projects? What kind of?
It was off my own back. So my uni gave me free subscription to LinkedIn Learning, so there's quite good videos on that. But there's loads of videos on different design skills on that website, but there's also loads of things on YouTube. There's a few PDFs running around of how to make certain things in SolidWorks. It is literally like the internet is a secondary academy. There's
Mm.
if you need to learn something, there's always something on the internet to help you learn. You just got to find it, really.
What did you have in your day, Drew? You must have had books, I'm guessing. Did you have the internet back then?
Yes, we had the internet in the early 2000s, Brad.
Right.
I can't believe you just asked me that. Yeah, so we learned. Well, it was basically the old equivalent of Creo, which I found really, really difficult at the time. Pro Engineer, it was loads of right-click menus. It was menus on menus on menus. It was horrible to use, but it was super powerful. SolidWorks sort of came in and took over because it was so much easier to get to grips with. So yeah, by the time I was sort of getting towards the end of my first job, yeah, I'd had exposure to a number of different CADs. So then after that, you kind of got your route into any type of CAD you want.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, to echo Connor's point, pick one up that you're already familiar with and get really strong at one, and then have a tinker around with the other things like Blender or some of the like there'll be open source versions that are similar as well. So a lot of them are kind of the same or very, very similar. So you've got your parametric modeling, or you've got NURBS based, and have a look about. You might find one that really suits you, or at least you've got enough experience to put things in your portfolio and demonstrate your working method as well.
Yeah, I got told once that the difference between SolidWorks and Creo is a bit like a manual and an automatic.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So if you can nail down Creo, I think that probably stands you in good stead as like a CAD to learn. You're better coach for the other way.
Properly, you'll coast through SolidWorks. But you might get frustrated that once you get into it, you're looking for features that just are not there. Levels of control that are just not there.
Yeah.
Which is the equivalent of like hearing your automatic car rev loads and not get going quickly instead of having a manual.
Yeah. One thing I'm interested to ask all of you actually is that are all of you in the job that you wanted to do when you actually, or has anyone gone down a different route? Has anyone gone to the dark side of digital, for example, or is anyone doing something completely different to maybe what they'd have studied, kind of ID product, or are you all kind of doing the kind of job that you were wanted to do?
I think mine was quite unconventional. So my title is lofty and I don't deserve it. But it's head of product at an innovation agency in London. And that's like basically came about when their spin-out company, which was basically a beer pouring robot for events. So like a kind of a fun way to have a robotic bar, open bar, if you wanted to have an open bar in an event. This was like quite a good solution. And they had a great year in 2019 and then were promptly, hit with COVID, which wiped out every event ever. So I kind of ended up working at the innovation / marketing side of that. I still do product design. It's just in a completely different environment than I could have imagined. But that's probably my piece of advice actually, would be, like a lot of graduates, I think in particular, look at ID jobs, junior ID jobs in consultancies. It's kind of the go-to search term. But I'm so happy in my job right now. Like I get to, it's kind of like uni in that I work on a lot of different projects, but get paid, and it's got some of the, a bit more control, I think, than some consultancy does.
So are you doing different things then? Are you not doing kind of what Drew, when Drew talks about Creo and things like that, is that just aiding to what you're doing now?
So there's definitely some CAD stuff that I do, but it's more like we work with I almost said the name there. We work with a lot of PR firms and marketing agencies. Sometimes they'll come to us and say, we've got this amount of money to spend on a project, go have a think. And that's much more of a traditional double diamond, methodology as to what you come up with, and then other times they'll come up to you and say, we know exactly what you want. Can you build it? The difference is, like, if it's CAD and sketching, sometimes it's kind of just so that they can post something online, and sometimes if it goes to production, you're talking 50, 100 units maximum, never anything. So, like, design for manufacturing is not a thing, but design for Instagram kind of is.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other thing. But it's
that's going to come up, I'm sure, in the next.
Yeah.
Brad, can I just the question you asked about unexpected turns? Amber, you mentioned you weren't looking for a job. What can you share what you were planning to do?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, like everyone, got a bit too stressed too early on in the process about finding a job and whatnot, and actually kind of needed to rein it back in and finish uni to start. So doing that and, like, focusing back on uni led me to doing my own thing. So I had my own podcast for a little while over the summer, and I guess I've always done various bits and bobs, whether that's work experience or being involved in events, social media, alongside uni. And I think, without realising, that allowed me to build up quite a network when I was studying. And I think I was really lucky that the uni was so supportive of doing so much alongside uni, and kind of incorporating that into projects wherever I could. So I feel quite lucky from that sense. So throughout the summer, did my own thing for a bit. Was quite set on going back to do a master's, but from doing so much, I guess, without sounding big-headed, I was approached with a couple of jobs, which was really unexpected and quite a nice position to be in, I guess. But I just didn't have a clue what to do.
Yeah, there's this great article on LinkedIn at the minute from a chap called Russell Beard. I think it's called, like, Dear Undergraduates or something like that. And actually, like, point 3 or 4 of his thing is to network. So what you've done there is like a Russell Beard stamp of approval of if you was at university, and putting yourself out there as a byproduct of that, you may kind of land these opportunities. I take it that none of you went to, because New Designers is not a thing, right? Or was it virtual? Or
it was virtual this year. Yeah.
What was that like?
Through their it was basically just through their Instagram. They did like New Designers selects where they just posted, like, the best projects from graduates on their Instagram account. They didn't really go much further than that this year, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if it's okay, I was just going to jump on Amber's point. I was going to say that for your first question as well. I think my learning was, like, making the decision to start posting on Instagram before graduating is what's led to all the opportunities that I've had. And I know there's always that thing, especially with final years and final year projects, around IP and whether you want to keep your IP on your project or not. But for me, I just made that decision. Do I want to be an entrepreneur right now and kind of go down that route? And the answer was no. Like, I wanted to get into a consultancy. So I just made the decision early on, probably much earlier than some of the others in my year, to start posting my work online. And that really led to, like, starting to slowly build my design page up on Instagram and getting those opportunities. And that started with the freelance work that I got for a startup from Loughborough. And I was going to stay there. They offered me a full-time role. And then Crux approached me, and then I had that dilemma of, I was literally on the same weekend that I got the contract from Tezuka, who I worked for. I then got the offer from Crux, so I had a big decision to make.
We've all been there.
Yeah, one of the hardest things I've done, telling Tom from Tezuka that I wasn't going to stay with him. But yeah, I think going to Instagram and starting to network, it's a a huge,
Yeah.
powerful tool.
At
It's
what
probably a
point?
really good opportunity for storytelling as well about how you work, because obviously, Instagram, you've got the whole board, but you've got those separate pieces as well where you can sort of discuss. I suppose you can demonstrate your approach, some of your sketches, some of your modeling, that type of thing, and then different paths that you might have gone through as well. Sounds like it sounds like it obviously put you in good stead, but probably something to consider as well. We were told today, Brad and I, that designers are typically not good at storytelling. So I think that's something to take away, that if you can be innovative in how you demonstrate your work and what you're willing to share, then absolutely you can be.
And that was going to be like my second point for it. I think the one regret I had was in the rush of final year, just the lack of process photos and documenting the process. And I think as I've left, I know all the hard work I put in and what was done for each project, but we're visual people, employers are visual people as well. And, just them images in your portfolio, even though it just seems like a silly picture at the time, it's 30 seconds. And, it can really convince people and show them what you're doing rather than just saying it. And I think it means a lot more. I wish I definitely did a bit more of that.
Yeah. So at what point in those 3-4 years you were studying did you think, right, I'm going to hit this Instagram thing quite hard, I'm going to invest quite heavily into this? What happened? Was it just one day you were speaking to someone, or is it you think about Sam Does Design, for example, and he's a living, breathing example of someone that's gone down that route and done has built a tremendous kind of personal brand off the back of it as well. So what was the point in time where you thought, you know what, I think there's something in this?
So I think I started my account in second year.
Okay.
Just to get my work out there. I felt like I wanted a little corner for my design stuff, and I posted a few projects from second year, and then placement kind of happened, and I couldn't really put anything on then because obviously all covered by NDA and things. And then it was when I got back into final year that I started wanting to kind of increase it more. Definitely Sam Does Design's one of them. Roshan's another one. There's loads. Harry Ibiz Design, another really good one. And I just wanted to start showing my work. So final year, I guess, is the answer. I really committed.
Yeah. And how does that fare with the rest of you? I presume you're on Instagram in some capacity or not. It might be more of a personal page or whatever, but does anyone else have a similar story in terms of it's been a benefit or not?
Kind of active, just to counter that point a little bit, I kind of sometimes give in, but pretty much actively find myself resisting completely. There's nothing of my final year project on Instagram, and I think Charlie touched on it a bit earlier, but when I was doing my final year project, like every project a designer has, it's their favorite project of all time. So I decided I wanted to keep my IP and didn't post anything at the time. I kind of been lucky in some senses because I got a job. So I'm not kind of going to be the entrepreneur, but now that me and the company are working together to potentially produce one of the units to run a test pilot, which is quite cool. But so if you get the chance to keep your IP, I think that's always something that should be done. But it's you've got to weigh it up yourself because you might give up the ability to patent it.
Yeah.
But that's not really why I avoid Instagram. It's more like I think it's great for showing off renders. Charlie, I had a look at your Instagram earlier and it's beautiful. I just think it takes a lot of time and a lot of curation, and it's the same with sketches and things like that. And I've never really felt like it would pay off because I think well, I mean, you're the first case of getting a job through Instagram I've heard of, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I've always just genuinely interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of that before.
I've always thought that like soft skills were a bit stronger. I've worked with a lot of startups, and I think I could talk my way into one easier than I can get one on Instagram. But yeah, it's a funny thing. We all know the pros and cons of it. It's a great community in so many ways, but there's a lot of ego on it. I think it highlights some of the bad points, particularly in the London design scene, and it's not something I've ever felt that I kind of am part of in a way, which I don't know why, but
There's
I
still
don't
time.
like.
There's still
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Matt.
just watch, just
Come on,
watch.
There's still time.
Great place to be.
Do you know what? I warm into Instagram. I go through days where I hate it, and I go through days where I quite enjoy it. It depends what mood you catch me in. I think. Just to let's try and rope someone else in. So, Honor, how about you? How did you get on with? How did you get on with your kind of final year stuff? Because I'm pretty sure I've watched through just Win and stuff. I've watched kind of videos of your kind of final year stuff. Was that through Instagram and stuff, or was that just through your own personal
No,
brand?
so I'm all up for Instagram design accounts. I don't actually personally have one. I see the benefit of them and showing your skill set, but I think what I've learned the most is that people are hiring for your thinking and your process. If they want to know what the need is for your product, what your product is, it all needs to be super clear. And how you got to that end result, like what was your journey, what was your thinking behind it. So I was lucky enough at university to be selected as, to talk about my final year project. So I had a great opportunity to talk about my project and get that videoed and posted online. So that definitely did help. But kind of going back to your very first point about what to do when you graduate and what to work on, I think whether it's through Instagram or through your portfolio, the skill set's really important, but I think take the time from all the university projects you've done or personal projects that you've done, and really think about the process you use. So the renders, the sketches, the prototypes, they're all great, but they want to know why you use them and how they were beneficial to get into your end design. So I'd really take the time out to think about that and how you like this whole storytelling, what was that talk today from Vida, how you communicate that to show that you understand the design process and you understood the need and you got to a solution. Because people that are hiring want to know you can apply that design process to any project. But yeah, with my final year project, I was quite lucky that what I designed for my final year project was a blood count device for cancer patients that allowed them to do their routine blood tests at home rather than going to hospital. And it happened that NTIA had identified exactly the same need and solution. So I walked into my job having kind of designed their product already. So yeah, that really helped with communicating my process and thinking, and then helped a lot with the onboarding into the company because I knew the need, I understood the technology, the users, and what was kind of involved to get there. So yeah, I guess there's different ways. Like Instagram's brilliant, but I think how you communicate your thinking through your work and through your portfolio and through interviews as well, like they want to know that you understand your work inside out. So if they approach you with a question about why did you make the decision, you need an answer to and a solution as to why you thought about it. So why the component next to this component in an exploded view? You need a good answer and show that you've thought about it all.
Yeah, I had someone that was, I hope they're not listening to this because it'd be a bit awkward, but I had someone that was on interview today with a client of mine and then they didn't get the job. They do know, it's not as if this is the first time they're going to find out. But I imagine how awkward that would be. But the actual this was, I don't really get involved with graduate recruitment, so you'll realise that these kind of trends kind of follow you as your career kind of develops. But it was all down to his thinking. So this is a chap that's done a few years at a fairly prestigious design agency in London. So from a broad CV perspective, you go, okay, well, that looks quite good. But the reason why he didn't land the gig is because when they started to probe a little bit into his work, there was no substance behind it. So it looked really pretty, but when you started to delve into the thinking, that's where it was absent. I suppose
designed for Instagram.
It's
Instagram.
I fall foul of that sometimes, but I do kind of see the argument of like you still need that visualization to demonstrate that thinking. So again, it's this kind of two-sided thing. But there's a real life example I can give to people that that visually it looked beautiful. It really did. But at interview, you're going to get probed a little bit beyond that, and that is something I would kind of advise people at any point in their career, not just at a junior level, that when you're actually facing someone on a shared screen of a lead designer that's looking at your work. The visual side of things is I would say it as a forgiven. Like that's like we talked about this last time, didn't we? When you were talking about, I was talking about portfolios. I was like, well, if you're going to work for X company, you should be able to do these things anyway. Like that's a forgiven that you should be able to do that. So visualization is one of those things where like your portfolio should look good. Like it shouldn't. It's the thinking behind it is what's the determining factor between whether you land the job or whether you don't land the job. Yeah, that's just from a real life example that I've gone through over the last 24 hours, which might help people that are kind of midst career life or whatever. Or so yeah. Sam, what about you? You're up in North Wales. How have you found things this year?
Yeah, it's I mean, weirdly enough, I thought it'd be the last place I'd ever come back to be honest. When you're from North Wales, you want to venture out in the world, which I've been fortunate to have done. But yeah, no, came back and yeah, just the opportunity rose really. So yeah, just working in Design Reality based in St. Asaph, and yeah, 2020 for me personally has been pretty good in respect to opportunities and stuff. So
yeah, how long have you been there?
Since August.
So
yeah,
what's it been like? Tell me about these first. Well, to all of you, tell me about these first few months or up to you've had in industry. What's it been like? Has it been what you expected? Different? What? Because there'll be other people that'll be applying for gigs right now, or they may just be starting somewhere, or they're going to in 6 months' time they'll be in the same boat you was in 6 months ago. What's the industry actually been like?
I mean, personally, I think in terms of like actually having a job, I might be one of those really annoying people who are as a big optimist and play on gratitude quite a lot. But yeah, no, for before starting the job, I did the masters, and I thought process in doing a masters in the first place was that a degree is not to discredit anyone that's got a degree. It's kind of like commonplace now, and masters might be the next thing given, especially this year, might just be best option for a lot of students as well. I thought I'll do that, and yeah, no, finished masters on 14th of August, and then started the job on the 17th. So like throughout the whole masters, it was kind of like I knew for me a lot of the time and projects that I would do, and it was kind of like preparation for a job, because yeah, the best advice I think I've received has just been proactive again with connecting with people, obviously don't go out now, but going out, exploring the world and stuff like that, and it's just an opportunity, I guess, just to grow your network from your living space or wherever you're sitting at the moment from your desk, and just get in contact with people. Well, for example, there's a guy that got a gig from PDR based down in Cardiff, and I asked him, how long did it take to get the job? Who did he speak to? How did he get there? Portfolio stuff, and the common thing that I found from a lot of people is that nearly took him like 8 months to get a job and everything. So my mindset was like, okay, if I can start now, start at least preparing somewhat for a job, then I'll be kind of prepared and ready. And that really wasn't the case anyway, because obviously having technically a job whilst you're doing your masters, I've looked through my portfolio, and everyone I'm sure here would agree, when you look back on your old portfolio, you just want to throw up a little bit because of how much you've grown in the past year, and you just want to develop it. And yeah, so I pretty much had like a call from Design Reality. I had like open to work on LinkedIn. Troy Baker, the design director, got in contact with me, said, looking for someone to take on board. Do you have a portfolio? I said yes, or was working on it. So that was the longest 36 hours of my life. No sleep, getting it done and sending it in. But yeah, no, it's I'm not sure what anyone else's experience is kind of like from doing that. But
nice team there, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, everyone is. I don't think I could have asked for a better start to my career.
Yeah, they got a long history of nurturing grads and masters, and I think you'll be in safe hands there. You'll get a good range of opportunities. You'll get some that will be under pressure, and do you have tight deadlines and somebody will be able to flex a little bit? So yeah, good luck to you.
Yeah, no, everyone, if anyone is listening from there, really thank you very much for your time and your patience and stuff, really, because I think that was one of my worries, maybe going in kind of like, are they throw me right into the deep end, which I kind of agree with anyway, because you learn quite, faster and quicker that way. But yeah, no, everyone's always taking the time to sort of explain things properly. If I don't quite get anything, I'll ask them. I might be annoying that way because I'd rather ask a really stupid question to get the right answer instead of like not asking it at all. So, yeah, no, it's a great experience. Loving it, to be honest. Really am.
Good stuff. And if you're not enjoying it, then I just won't send them the clip, so it's fine. So, Will, I want to get you kind of. I think we kind of started to go down this route, like what remote working is like now. You're working in a different country to where you're actually living, so.
Yeah, so at the minute I'm still in Oxfordshire, just kind of extended my Christmas break a bit. But before Christmas, I'd moved to Dublin, got myself a flat and whatnot, and was doing kind of partly remote and partly going into the office. But it's been quite a strange experience because it's kind of like working with lots of people you've never actually met before, and then there's some times where I like cross paths with people and the kind of realize that I've never actually seen them in the flesh before. So it's been
they're a lot bigger than what they look like on a screen.
yeah, you don't get a scale of height, which is quite strange when you see someone walking towards you. But yeah, no, it's been a really good experience, but it's definitely been a strange start, and kind of I think being junior and kind of needing some support remotely is quite difficult. You can't just walk over to someone, ask a question. It's all kind of got an extra step of having to email someone or arrange a call or something like that. I don't know if anyone else has found that an issue, but yeah, I've just found it kind of like sometimes really jarring to your workflow, where you're like right in the midst of something, and it'd be great just to turn around and ask someone a question, but instead you've got to send an email or ring someone. But yeah, it's these last few months have definitely been challenging, but been a great experience as well. So
yeah, how has everyone found remote working? We're all going through it in some capacity or another. Positive, negative, indifferent?
I think okay. Tom.
Oh, sorry. I've kind of prompted all of you there. That's my bad. Tom, you go.
I guess it was challenging for me because it's been my first experience remote working, and it's been freelance. So I've been working with one other guy who I got in contact with off the back of one of your podcasts, actually. And
what a testimonial that is.
Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that in for you. But no, it's been challenging just because I feel like I didn't want to be a nuisance to him. As he's the only other person I was working with. So just kind of echo what Will was saying, that I didn't want to get on his nerves and kind of I can just spend another 5-10 minutes trying to work it out for myself. But actually, had I been in an office, I could have just asked him and it would have been a really easy conversation. But aside from that, no, it's been really, really, really positive. And I think on the flip side of that, I've kind of had one-to-one tuition, which I probably wouldn't have had I been in an office. So because I've only been working with him, it's enabled me to get a bit more of a close relationship. So no, it's been pretty positive overall.
And just on that point that you both raised about not wanting to irritate your line manager or your partner, your colleague, whatever, do it. Like if you irritate them enough, they'll tell you. And up until that point, then you can just say sorry. It's fine. You want to get it clear. Even if you're in the same building or in the same, on the same desk, just keep having conversations. And even if that's have a WhatsApp group, so you can just kind of ping and send pictures or whatever. Whatever means, just do it, because no communication is far worse than if you're just constantly one more thing. It's fine. And that's part of it. If you've got someone who's new to the organization, whether they're a junior or whether they're even more experienced than you, if they're new to the environment that you're in, that's part of the expectation that they will want to get involved. And part of doing that is having lots of nice little conversations. And if you can't go get a coffee together in the flesh, then just go if you've got 10 minutes for a coffee call later. They either will or they won't. And if they won't, then I get if that happens frequently, that you're reaching out to your boss or like say line manager, colleague, whatever, and they're not available to you, then also raise that because they might not have realised that you are depending on them a little bit.
Yeah. Also, I think it's the other way around as well. I remember talking in the lockdown. I can't remember these lockdowns anymore. Are we on number 3? Are we? I think it was lockdown 2, and I was talking to DCA up in Warwick, and their juniors, they rely really heavily on them for Keyshot, and they were saying how when they bring new people, obviously they're working remotely at the minute, they actually kind of need younger members of the team to help them brush up on new bits of software and new skills and things like that. And when they're not in the same building as them, they're not necessarily getting that learning. So they're also kind of, it's a two-way thing in the sense of you're equally bringing something to the table to people that have been doing it 5, 10, 15, 20 years or whatever. So it's a two, although it may feel like a one-way thing, like, oh, I'm bothering him again. It's actually two-way.
I'm in a company where actually, so part of me while I was looking for a job and while I still had a SolidWorks license was get Keyshot, it's £90 for an educational year while I'm still technically a student, and let that run for the next year. Got a job where it's actually more traditional. We don't really render out nice, perfect images of products we're doing because we're doing so many, we do lighting. So we do so many different types of lights that either a quick fusion render will be at most, it's quite traditional where it's either an illustration, a CAD drawing, or we don't think with CAD. We go into the workshop, we bend a bit of tubing just to see, right, does that look right in real life? Because Keyshot and rendering is great if you're presenting ideas, but in the sort of like commercial interior lighting.
I suppose you're in-house, aren't you? So it might be a different kind of dynamic. Whereas if you was consultancy side, you'd probably be doing quite a lot of presenting, visualization, those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, so we have our own outputs in our own brands, but we also work for external customers who are your high street interior shops. So even the same with when we present to our clients, it's not a beautiful Keyshot render because that takes so many hours and we've got so many ideas to go through. It's gone back to the old Photoshop, again, CAD drawings, or we just bring the samples to them that we've made in-house, bending a bit of metal or tubing or welding something together and saying, this is what it will look like in the physical form.
Yeah. Did you expect that when you was at uni?
No. Actually, my degree, I'm not going to slate it, but it wasn't very manufacturing heavy. My degree was very design studio based, and all the people we had coming in to show us their careers were from studios. So in my head, all I thought was I have to be in a studio-esque job. But actually, there are a lot of other sort of design jobs out there that aren't digital based that you can still get into and still reap that creative output. And my university was the projects were so quick and so short that you couldn't properly refine in the workshop. We weren't pushed into the workshop. It was kind of on our own accord. So I'm really happy in the fact that my placement was workshop based. It was with a design studio in London making furniture. And then my job now is part drawing and sketching thumbnails, part, like I said, going to the workshop, and thinking with your hands is still, I think, the most effective way of coming up with the right sort of dimensions, at least, than thinking through CAD.
100% agree with everything you just said.
Can I
So-
quickly add to that?
That's it.
Go,
Yeah,
go,
go.
go on.
So I came from the like super manufacturing heavy like design department. It was, you know, kind of a sort of blend between engineering management and manufacturing management with like a couple of design courses on the side, really. And I'd always thought about uni, like uni had always been about brainstorming and ideating, but like, you know, that you need to get good at knowing what ideas are suitable and kind of meet the brief. And you know, like I kind of feel like my kind of sort of weakness as a designer is that I'm too serious too early on. When I went into my company, they just the ideas aren't even sketches to start with. We just have a Zoom meeting, and you know, the people that have been there longer, particularly management, are just you know, come up with like wild ideas, and no one's thinking about how we do it yet, because they know that that comes on later on, and it's you know, just about thinking what is the interesting solution here. So that's
So
a very good point.
So away from all the Creo and the CAD and all of that, and like that's an ongoing discussion, and there's enough stuff that we've heard a million times about that. What else have you found? Like, are you using any of the soft skills? Are you doing more or less of the user journey mapping than you thought, or anything else like that? Anything that surprised you that you do? I was like, actually, we hardly do any of that. We just dive in on this. Or who haven't we heard much from? Haven't heard from Amber in a while, and then there's Honor as well. But I know, go on. One of you, just put your hand in the air. Whoever.
I guess mine kind of leads back to the Instagram point. So I guess it's worth mentioning that I use Instagram quite heavily, but I've never shared my design work on there. But every design opportunity I've had has come up as a kind of part of sharing my kind of day-to-day with a medical device on Instagram, and that's how I've kind of made all of my connections, whether I intended to or not, in various medical companies. And I think that, so through building those relationships, I guess all of those soft skills were built as well. So like public speaking and working with the media and all sorts, really. And I think that's come in really, really helpful in kind of starting work and getting to know people and working with clients, because it's kind of similar in a way. And I think on the remote working thing as well, I think, I don't want to say the best thing, but I think one of the only good things that came out of graduating in lockdown was that I kind of felt prepared for remote working.
That's a fair point.
That's interesting. Actually, just to add onto that as well, I think in terms of preparation from uni into industry and stuff like that, it kind of it shows what I've come to realize is that it kind of shows how important your sort of design thinking or design fundamentals is. Because whichever job you go into, everyone uses whatever software they're more comfortable with. There might be Creo, might be SolidWorks, or you know, they might be spending this much time on research or this much time on conceptual designing and stuff like that. And you kind of, as long as you build up, I guess, your design fundamentals and stuff like that, and your critical thinking, and you know, being empathetic and sort of understanding from a business point of view that, you know, still need to make money type thing as well. You know, I think you can pick up software and stuff if you learn the craft, I guess, put the hours in, try and replicate things. And then once you can replicate it to the exact, you know, not say nth degree, but to a good standard, you can then sort of start looking at different ways to attack it and things. And I guess just be versatile. And because I think that's another thing that I've learned as well. When you leave uni, you're growing your own process. You're adhering to the process of consultancy or whatever job that you're in, and you're kind of growing yourself as an individual person. So it's kind of like, 3 different channels to sort of staying within and experimenting within as well. So, but yeah, I think using everything that you can, and just, as I say, remember what uni taught you, as in just, I guess as well, don't kind of stop learning when you leave university. Always kind of think, you know, there are always new like design sprints or thing. People are wanting their products quicker and faster, and that'll sort of win the client at the end of the day if you can get what they want quicker and faster and more efficiently, really. So
yeah, I think what I've realised with remote working is that you're all in different kind of companies. You're all going through little different issues. So one of you may be working in a company where it's quite difficult to actually get hold of your customer, for example, like they're going through their own problems. Others, you may be not realizing it, but you may not be getting development in the sense of you haven't been in an environment yet where you've been in an office and you've heard your director talk to a client for the first time and go through. I find when I was starting my job, for example, but it's not design, but some of the softer things I think you learn just by being in an open space is when things go a bit wrong. So like when you're overhearing a manager talk to a client for the first time, but something's gone wrong and how they've overcome that and how they've dealt with that. That's where I think the learning on a negative point of view probably isn't going to be there for you because you've just not been in that environment where you're next to someone that's having to overcome an issue. Equally, what you might find as a positive is that from a communication standpoint, because you're communicating with them less, you're probably more efficient with your communication with someone. So because you don't want to bother them with emails all the time, every time, a lot of your conversations, I'd imagine, are going to be quite productive in the sense that every time you do talk to someone, there's a little bit of meaning behind it. So that may be, and some of you are in kind of consultancy dynamics where communicating with your clients, for example, and you may be communicating very differently. Charlie, just to kind of rope you in, obviously your agency side, how have you found that? And in the sense of, I doubt you're in an environment now where you're going to meet clients face to face, for example, and building those relationships with clients. So what's life at Crux been like?
Yeah, I was gonna jump in on all them points that you just raised. Really, I think it's definitely the two-sided coin of working remotely. I think the positive one is that there is actually times where not being in the office, you are more productive with your work. I don't know if that's the same for everyone else, but I know for me that limiting the amount of conversations, and I don't know, even like the 15 minutes of going to get a coffee, where that can be quite easily 20-30 minutes by the time you've gone down the floor and you've bumped into people there and all the rest of it, and it comes 5 minutes again, and you actually get a lot of that time back, which is, I think my output's been higher working from home. There's also the point of the hard stop's not quite the same as well, so I think you can quite easily work longer, which I'm trying to avoid. But I think, yeah, the negative is, as you said there, is not being in that environment all the time. I know, like my placement, just to jump back to there before I talk about Crux, I went with a smaller creative marketing agency in London because they had good clients, but for a small team, and that allowed me to, sit in a room where, the owner of the company and the directors are all in that same room as like us guys, us designers. So learning that business behind design, and as you say, like learning the wrongs and the negative problems that people have to overcome, for me, I think is definitely really beneficial, and we definitely don't have that now. But Crux has been great. I'm lucky because I was in the office quite a lot for my first couple of months. So I'm just coming up to 6 months now. So I did get 2 months. I moved to Bristol straight away and had 2 months that were really, really good in the office. So still got to meet a few people. But since coming home, it's definitely been different. But I found it quite easy in a way, I think, as everyone said, echoing what everyone else says. Graduating last year, there was a lot of months just on your own, kind of grafting away in your room.
Yeah, I've certainly been there. We've had a question from someone called Isabel Parker, and from my brief knowledge, I'm pretty sure Isabel is actually a student at Middlesex, so I think she's studying this year, so she may be a year behind you guys or two. And she's asked, how do you stay motivated dealing with burnout, particularly during job hunting, portfolio reworking? I'll definitely edit that bit out. how have you guys kind of stayed motivated in these weird and wonderful times? Connor, you mentioned you applied for 60 or something jobs. How did you stay motivated during?
A lot of walks.
Yeah.
A lot of time to myself.
Yeah.
I kind of treat design as like a hobby that pays, and that kind of eases the tension within yourself. In if you think of it as a career, then you're constantly thinking, I've got to be the best at everything. I've got to do this, that, and the other. If you think of it more as a hobby, you bring the fun back into work. So it's kind of being in the right mindset of not taking yourself too seriously. And at the same time, just make sure you have constant breaks. Like being in front of a computer screen, that will burn your eyes out and you'll get headaches. So go for constant walks. Listen to, I don't know, comedy podcasts is something I did.
Or design ones.
Holiday. Yeah. And yeah, it just break up your time and try not do so many late nights, because you've always got tomorrow. Unless you've got a deadline, then you got today, and that's it.
Yeah, then you've got 36 hours to put a portfolio together, as Sam will know.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sam, he nailed it. Yeah, that's kind of what the first thing that comes into mind really is. What helped me is, just take frequent breaks, but short breaks.
What about any other guys? I'm trying to think. Will, I don't know, you're in a different country to where you're working. So how do you stay motivated where, you can't even like meet up with a colleague or anything, even for a social distance walk or anything? So how are you staying
I would just
motivated?
Say in terms of kind of getting the portfolio like done and dusted and applying for jobs, like I always find that sometimes I can put 2 hours to something and I'll get the same amount out of it as if I put 8 hours into something. Like at a certain point, your wheels are just spinning. So I kind of think you should always be able to kind of set yourself a time limit on doing those sorts of things, and then be able to kind of put stuff down and come back to it, because I feel like you need to put the effort into something and not just the time. I think speaking to other people and knowing from my own experience, you can just sit in front of the computer for a whole day and not get anything done. And it's that kind of thing of just kind of trying to constantly refocus on what you're doing. And the thing that I found most useful when I was applying to jobs was to just be kind of realistic with myself and kind of write a to-do list of what I was going to do, and also kind of think, when I'm applying for a job, is this worth my time, in the sense of is this something that is a realistic option for myself, and also could my time be spent doing something else? And if that is just going out for a walk and coming back to it later, then at the end of the day, you're giving yourself a better chance of kind of coming across well, instead of rushing stuff or just spreading yourself too thin. I think it's
there's only so much you can do, isn't there? If you're applying for jobs all day long, I don't know if that's the most productive use of time, as you say. People that just fire things out, it's a bit like, actually, if you just take a step back a little bit and then say, right, I'm going to spend an hour today looking for jobs, but not spending my whole day looking for work, because then you're just going to become depressed by 3 o'clock in the afternoon because you've not got anywhere. But if you just dedicate an allotted time to it, you'll probably still get the same amount of kind of responses you would do before. Honor, you have to work with Win, so how do you stay motivated?
Brilliant. I think it kind of links back to your point before. I think it's a lot to do with communication. I think you've got to remember, although you're working remotely, like I found storytelling and communication is so important. So I'm quite lucky, or am I? Every day I talk to my immediate team, and we find it the most efficient way of talking things through. So whether that's a concept or how you're going to figure out how to test with users in the middle of a pandemic, like just having the conversations and bouncing ideas off each other, you get to solutions a lot quicker. So whether you're working remotely or you are applying for jobs, I'd still communicate with people, whether it's your course mates, they get feedback on your portfolio, people in the industry, asking them questions, how they found their time in industry, what tips they can get. just keep communicating with people, and you'll get more ideas and more inspired, and realize other people in the same position as you as well. So if you work too remotely and you end up doing the same thing all day, you forget what else is going on out there. So yeah, communication I think is key, and it will help with all your soft skills as well for when you eventually work in a job.
Yeah, brilliant.
Just add on
On,
to that, actually, in terms of motivation, because she said about burnout and stuff like that. She, I think you guys might have heard, Mel Robbins. She's my Simon Sinek equivalent, Brad.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like motivation's a load of rubbish, because you have to feel a certain way to get something done. So I kind of believe in that, and I think she said something about reducing it to the ridiculous. So if you're looking maybe at your portfolio or looking at messaging someone, then just start with doing your cover page. Don't spend ages in terms of finding a perfect texture to put as your first, hi, my name's Sam, I think, but just do one thing that's ridiculously easy to do. And then as soon as you start doing that, it kind of snowballs into you sort of progressing further, I guess. So
yeah, I had burnout a couple of years ago, and I don't think I was about 22, something like that. And my solution was just to get on a plane to Australia and just get pissed up, and just for about 6 months. And I realised that actually, obviously you can't do that now, but it doesn't actually work because you're traveling. You basically just putting your burnout on hold, and then you come back and you're the same kind of feelings are still there. So anyone that thinks just getting on a plane is the solution to solving burnout, they're a liar, basically.
I was like doing something else, like doing something different creatively. I think Sam, you're right. Procrastination is really valuable, and when your body is ready to, and when you're like in the right emotional space, you'll just get it all done. And like Will says, stick 2 hours in instead of the whole day, and get it done, and then go do something else. And go, right, once I've boxed that off, I can turn the amps up and go and play guitar or go for a run, or see how much beer I can drink in Australia.
It's my days of Great Northern, I'm sure. Unfortunately, I had a look the other day actually, and the only way you can get into Australia at the minute is if you're an ICU nurse. They're not really letting anyone else in at the minute, so I don't think I'm going to be on the skills list, unfortunately, at the minute. But give it another year, and maybe I'll go back and finish off where I started. But I just thought I'd finish off just by saying thank you, really, for spending your evenings with us. And it's really weird for us too, because we're actually spending time with people that actually listen to us as well. Most of the time, people we have on, and we'll say something like, "If you listen to it," and they'll go, yeah, and then we go, okay, which one did you like? And they're scrambling around thinking, we like that one with Tom or something like that, and they haven't listened to it. But we do really appreciate that you've taken your evening with us.